10 million jobless officially. Companies begin layoffs everywhere, including those getting billion-dollar bailouts. Dividends are suspended for many companies. This could not result in a V-shaped recovery for the economy. As a result, a cascade of defaults may occur as individuals and businesses find themselves unable to pay rent, mortgages, and other expenses. We may be already past the tipping point. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. On this channel, I get a lot of heat because I tell the truth. Tell it just like it is. Instead of telling you to buy the dip all the time, you got these other people giving financial advice. You got these other people out there who are simply giving you wrong information, misguiding you, and instead I bring you the data. Let's begin. So there's a few things happening with the Federal Reserve, and I just wanted to cover them really quickly. The Federal Reserve is trying to call time on a fire sale of treasuries by foreign governments and central banks. This is a big problem, of course, because the Federal Reserve will have to jump in. They have to do everything. They're buying anything and everything right now, and if foreign governments are going to be selling, they need to start buying. Foreign official holders of treasuries dumped more than $100 billion in the 3 weeks to March 25th, on course for the biggest monthly drop on record. We got a big problem going on here inside of the US on all levels. Countries reliant on oil exports and smaller Asian economies have been selling US debt, and central banks have been primarily offloading older, less liquid treasuries. They've been selling them to source dollars. So this could be an issue that is resolved in a matter of months and we start to see a resurgence, but I'm not sure exactly how all of this is going to play out. So at this time here, this is the information that we have. The Federal Reserve is at it again. They temporarily, of course, let me just put some quotations around that, ease some bank leverage requirements. Well, it's a really good thing that the Federal Reserve is there to make sure that they create an even bigger bubble. That's what needs to happen. Of course, we didn't learn our lesson with the housing crisis, didn't learn our lesson with the financial crisis, didn't learn our lesson with the everything bubble. This needs to get bigger and bigger. They, once again, let me just fix this Reuters article. Just put the quotations there. Temporarily easing its leverage rules for large banks by exempting certain investments from a key leverage calculation, hoping this will kickstart the financial system, but we know exactly what's going on. The Federal Reserve is acting as a central banker to the world by seeking to provide the global financial system with the dollar liquidity it needs to avoid seizing up. On Tuesday, the Fed said that they are establishing a temporary repurchase agreement facility to allow foreign central banks to swap any treasury securities they hold for cash. A lot of borrowing and commerce and investing is done in dollars. When you have a dollar crunch, it could turn into a recession or a contraction in activity into a financial crisis very quickly, because the dollar shortage can trigger defaults and deleveraging, and we know all about that from 2008. Over the past few years, I have seen many people suggest that they have been making so much money. The appreciation of their portfolio is fantastic, and they have commented about how big of an idiot I am, and then suggested that the dividends on their stocks will pay them well into their retirement. I really hope that that's the case. However, you can see many examples. This article is one, and I'm not sure if I covered the others in the last few days. I know I was reading the article. European banks suspend dividend payments. The list is at the bottom. ING Group, Bank of Ireland, UniCredit, and so on. There's a long list of them now, US and globally, that are not paying out their dividends. They're suspending that. I don't even know if people realize this. Just because a company is giving out that dividend today does not mean they will tomorrow. It's just like stock buybacks. They actually thought, there's a large group of people, I don't want to call them investors, let's call them speculators, that believe that if they were given dividends previously, they will give them into the future, and if they were doing stock buybacks, they will also continue to do those stock buybacks. That is completely ignorant based on what we have seen all of these different times. They had the same situation back in 2008. You don't need to look that far back into the pages of history to realize what's going on. US weekly jobless claims doubled to 6.6 million. Even though this happened, the stocks reacted positively to it because, hey, who really cares at this point? At the bottom, they make mention of something I wanted to also point out. That brings the 2-week total to about 10 million. So 10 million people in a 2-week period left jobless. There have been numerous corporations that have talked about laying people off, so we can expect these numbers to grow, not to get better, not to be resolved, but to grow. Here's a chart that shows you the initial jobless claims. I mean, it is just unbelievable. When you look at all the previous recessions, it is something to behold in comparison, just judging by how high this has gone. If we were to exclude 2020 from the equation, you would see that during these times we get these spikes and it goes down and up and down and up. But because this recent event is so dramatic, it basically looks like a line going across and then a hockey stick up. That is not a good sign for what's to come, because all of these people that are involved in this number here, they're laid off. They don't have a job. That means they don't have a source of income, and you know that the vast majority of them live paycheck to paycheck. Okay, so they're going to get their $1,200. Maybe they're going to get their unemployment insurance. Is that enough to pay their bills? They were financing their iPhone 11 Pro at $75 a month. They were paying 3 more payments on the couch in their house and the George Foreman grill. All of that cannot be paid anymore. So what does that do? Well, you got a lot of people who maybe, just maybe, they can get some jobs, they can get some work, they can make some income on the side, in addition to the government stimulus. But for a large group of them, they're going to be added to those who are going bankrupt, who are defaulting on their debt. And while that's, in a sense, terrible for these people, their families, and so on, think about what happens to the financial institutions as the defaults rise. This is huge. These are the continuing jobless claims. You could see that, yes, there's spikes on occasion when this occurs, but we have to keep monitoring it and see if it turns into anything like we saw during the financial crisis. If this situation that's going on today globally is resolved, or at least starts to get much better in the next couple weeks, perhaps not as many companies will start laying their people off. Only time is going to determine this. You're not going to be able to predict that. Banks warn of chaotic launch of small business lending program. This isn't good. This reminds me, and this article as well, about the Obamacare enrollment website in 2013. It was a disaster. The administration has failed to provide these businesses with the necessary guidelines and set requirements for the loans that are unworkable. But one thing is very important to note, is that these banks that are worried about all these conditions, they're the ones who are going to facilitate all of these different transactions, and they're going to make billions of dollars in profits. So maybe they'll get some of the bailouts, but they'll also get some of the billions. Hopefully I can get some data on that. Some countries' banking systems might have to be recapitalized, I love that word, or even restructured if their economies are severely handicapped by the prolonged disruption from the situation going on all around the world. That's according to the IMF. Now, thank you very much, IMF. Recapitalizing or restructuring, that's another word for reshuffling garbage, rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, or perhaps regurgitating some more ideas. They've done this all before and it fails every time. Look at Argentina. Look at Greece. Look at all of these countries that today the people themselves are not doing better than they were before. That should be a warning signal to everyone. This article here is written by Das, D-A-S. I'm sure you have heard of him. If not, anyway, he's got some good things to say. And essentially, his opinion is that if this particular instance didn't occur, eventually something would have broken this system. As I've said, we've been waiting for a trigger event. We've been waiting for that linchpin to be pulled. Nobody knew that this was going to be the thing that did it. But ultimately, when you have too much leverage, when you have too much debt, you have problems. Shortfalls Shortfalls in revenues and cash flows caused by the shutdowns have simply exposed the vulnerabilities of a structurally unsound economic and financial system. People push themselves to the absolute maximum. Let's see how far I can take it and hope that everything stays put. But that's not really the way it works over a long period of time. Eventually, things revert to the mean. I talked about this over and over again. Unfortunately, the vast majority of people don't want to listen. So Boeing gets a bailout, and then Boeing is laying off workers. This is out of Barron's. CEO says it could take years for the industry to recover from the crisis. You were told over the last few years that everything was fine within the financial system, within the political system, and of course we have the same rot that cannot be eliminated. It exists to the absolute core. To address the new reality, Boeing is offering a voluntary layoff plan. It is essentially a buyout for employees that want to or can afford to leave the company. I'm sure some will do that, but as far as I'm aware, they had something like 161,000 employees. So maybe a few thousand, they're close to retirement, they can get a nice buyout, they call it quits there. It might be okay for them, but for most people, they don't just want a paycheck. Here's a lump sum, go on vacation. No, they want a place to work so that they consistently make money and they get the benefits and so on. I really don't think that the average investor has priced in any of this type of event at all. And for good reason. It's going to make it look terrible on their investments, their 401ks, and so on. This map shows which states are seeing the most job losses. Okay, I'm going to scroll past it, but I just wanted to show you the map first. There's a breakdown in another type of chart. Clearly, certain areas are much worse than the others. This will impact, based on the different industries that are within that region and so on. Hardest hit by job losses, these states saw the most initial claims for unemployment in the latest week. They are adjusted for the size of each state's workforce. Hawaii at the top of the list, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Washington, and so on. This article here out of MarketWatch is talking about the deficit that will go to levels they have never seen before. Of course, nominally, but also as a percentage of GDP and anything else you want to compare it to. They're suggesting that they need to get the economy going, it's shutting down, but the money goes to inefficient resources and then they wonder why it doesn't get a kickstart. Food banks all over the United States are experiencing some dramatic issues right now. People are lining up for hours. This was already a problem previously, throughout 2019, throughout 2018. And right now it has gone to such an extreme. It's truly unbelievable and unfortunate to see. That's all for this video. If you found it informative, hit that thumbs up button. I really do appreciate that. If you want to check me out on Instagram, on Twitter, and on any other platform, just search The Money GPS. I do content not available here on those other ones, at The Money GPS. Selling online has become so important right now. Many people are out of work. Many people are looking for a side hustle. They're looking for information, but they don't want to pay for it. Well, I created a free e-course for my subscribers to learn about e-commerce, the AmazonGPS.com. If you are interested in learning about the financial system, why it is so messed up, why it was doomed to failure from day one, these two books cover everything you need to know. Check them out at the link in the description. And if you want the audiobook instead, themoneygps.com. If you want to know the situation with gold, should I buy it? Should I hold it? Should I sell it? What's it all about? I have this video breaking it all down. Click on it. I'll see you there.